Pete Yost here for the Unbuild It podcast with a word about our sponsor, Huber Engineered Woods. There are really three reasons why I think Huber Engineered Woods stands out, and it's a big part of why they're a sponsor of our Unbuild It podcast. First, they develop systems of products. The products are compatible and integrated. Makes our jobs a lot more easy in the field and when specifying. Second is superior tech support. There are really good website resources that they have developed for the application of their products, but they also have an outstanding 800 numbered tech team that really knows their stuff. And the last is a really active technical research and development team with whom I've done a lot of work over the years, and I have a lot of faith in the information I get from them when I have questions about product performance. So that's it. That's our high performance sponsor. Now on to the podcast.
I'm Jake Bruton, and today on the Unbuild It podcast, I'm joined by three other builders that I respect, and we're going to talk about business. Let's jump right into the conversation now.
Well, we've all talked about how we run our businesses and how we have developed them over time, whether it's client management, trade management, employee management. How do you all handle in-house training? How are we bettering our staff, and how are we improving them and growing?
Yeah, well, for starters, if you're not trying to better your employees, that sounds like you're not trying to better your business, right? Like if we're going to be the same as we were today, tomorrow, then that means probably the next day we're going to be the same company too, and we're constantly striving to be better at our jobs. I've had a couple people in my market, a couple other builders that I'm like friends with that see the amount of time that we invest in training, and they've challenged me on it and said things like, you're going to have guys that are going to be able to run their own business and they're just going to quit working for you. Like you're training your guys out of being employees. And I'm like, okay, like I want people to work for me that are good enough that they could run their own company, because then that means I have a bunch of people working for me that could all run their own company and we're all focusing on the same thing, and you get a much better product. The downside to that is sometimes those employees leave, but I'm very blessed that like we have, 8 people in our market that used to work for me that now are subcontractors. Like we could just about build a house with people that like I taught how to read tape measures, and now they're what we think of as the highest subs in the market. That idea of we're going to strive to be better is applied to every employee that comes into the company. For instance, we're attending a conference this week after we're done filming that is a multi-day conference that's out of town. It's not in our original market. My entire company is coming to the conference, and I paid our framers to close up shop and come to the conference as well. And while the framers might not take away a huge chunk from the HVAC conversation that might happen at the conference this week, or the passive house conversation, they'll be exposed to something that then they understand what we're trying to do better, and then they may be more motivated to execute what we're doing. So we invest a lot in conferences because it's a great spot to even just walk around. I'll take project managers to things like JLC or Fine Home Building Summit. Sometimes IBS. IBS is a little more of a nebulous thing that's hard to really get clear takeaways. But a small conference is a great place for a project manager to be exposed to a bunch of stuff that they wouldn't see in town and be able to like walk around with other builders. I get the opportunity for one of my project managers to walk around with, say, one of you guys at a conference when we're just walking around going, oh, that's stupid, I wouldn't use that. Oh, I like that. Hey, do you guys do it like this? I learn from those conversations. Why wouldn't my project managers? And we also do on-site training too. So if we're using a new product, even if we're just reviewing a product that we haven't used in a while, we have no problem calling a rep and going, hey, do you want to buy lunch, sit on the site, talk about everything, and then walk us through what's going on? Because if you buy those guys lunch, you'll have their undivided attention for 45 minutes and they won't answer the phone. They won't find something else to do. And I've felt like my entire career, it's been like a hard push to just be better. And I'm always worried that I'm not good enough to do what I'm doing. So I want to get the training too. So I may as well be there.
Yeah, it's good.
Luke, what are y'all doing?
I had a couple guys that, like you're saying, who worked for me. They are now definitely on their own, started their own company. They've got a successful company down the hill. We're up in the foothills. We say down the hills. But yeah, they've got a great company going. But I've got a new employee. I hired him January of 2020. He's coming out for this conference as well. I think trade shows, training, conferences, things like that are just getting them exposed to as much as possible. Whether it's even just going down to some of our subs, roofing contractor, for instance, go and meet them, visit them, see their shop, see how they do things, how are things installed, show us, the very small details, that sort of thing. I think that's really important.
How are you all, for any of you all, and Jake, if you're doing a lot of this as well, how do you juggle I guess there's a level of investment from cost, which might be an easier investment to make for some people. There's also the investment of time. Like if you're pulling an employee, one of your staff, off a job site, to actually educate them, how do you make up that time, or how do you communicate that to a client that is paying for you all to build a home, and you're pulling your staff away for a couple of days? Like how do you go about doing that, and how's that received?
Yeah, so I had to tell 4 clients this week that all of our job sites were shutting down. We're self-performing on a couple job sites. We had another site that was going to be a sub, but that sub's going to pull because we're not there to supervise. And then our framers are leaving a house that's being framed. I literally just said, here's the deal. We're going to be gone Wednesday, Thursday. The framers are going to be gone Wednesday, Thursday. I'm taking everybody in the company to a conference. I think it's important for our industry that these guys get to see this and get to learn. And this sort of thing has happened in the past, and that's how we got to the quality that we're bringing to the table now. So be patient with us.
Good feedback from clients?
Yeah, how do clients
Nobody
react?
really cares.
Yeah.
If you explain it as we're doing a training, like we're trying to be better, they get it.
Yeah.
They work jobs where they do trainings, where they have to learn things.
Sure.
A lot of times too, like the International Builder Show in particular, I come back with new product ideas or relationships that I've built that are directly applicable to ongoing projects. So I'll say to them, hey, there's oftentimes like a good chance that we're going to bring back knowledge that we can directly apply to your project. It's like being any other professional who's staying up to date on the latest medical journals or whatever it may be. It's like we need to stay on the pulse of what's going on in our industry in order for us to become the best builders. So we're making that investment in our company that is going to make its way into your house.
Do y'all find it hard to get your team to buy into this continuing education, or do you find them kind of already self-motivated for that opportunity? Or if you have both, how do you maybe approach a team member that needs that but maybe isn't pushing for it, and the opposite? You got a client that, or you have an employee that is already kind of pursuing that.
I think first and foremost, I'm looking for guys to bring on that have an intrinsic motivation in being in construction. They have to have the passion for it, first and foremost. I mean, I think all of the keys to success in our industry are more or less intangible qualities, being able to problem solve, being able to communicate, being able to manage a fragmented, dynamic environment. It's less about the sticks and bricks. But if they don't have the passion for construction, I don't care how good of a problem solver or communicator they are, they're just not going to be invested in trying to grow and learn. So I feel like I'm fortunate enough that I don't have to try to spur that within my guys. They're all kind of self-motivated, self-starters that have an interest and passion for construction, that have foregone careers in other lucrative industries to follow what they love to do.
That's really like the key to success for an employee. Like, this is a strenuous and stressful job. If you're on the management side, there's constant conversations that are uncomfortable. If you're swinging a hammer every day, there are days where the weather sucks, where the environment sucks, where the tasks you're doing that day suck. If you hate your job and then you have to go to a job that also physically or mentally sucks, that's way different than I'm inspired to be here and I'm going to go home proud of what I did every day. Yeah, it sucked today, but one day next week we're not going to have to pour concrete, or we won't be roofing next week, and we'll get to do this other cool thing that I'm very, very motivated by.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've found in the hiring process, in our suite of compensation package, little things like Journal of Light Construction or Fine Home Building. If you order those magazines, I'll reimburse you for them. If you'd rather not be the one to have to do it, I'll order it and I'll get it delivered to the office, and you can come by and pick it up even. Like, I want you to participate in the knowledge sharing environment. Thankfully, in our company, it's kind of obvious that there are going to be things on Instagram, that there are going to be things on YouTube, that there are conversations that you might not get to have with other companies. Like, we were on a job 6 months ago, and Steve Basic and Peter Yost are standing there talking to the project manager about how he's doing something. And I watched his face realize that they were about to tell him that they were doing something wrong. Like, he was like, okay, so like, and it's like, that's an incredible opportunity that we get because of the stuff that we do online. But there's somebody on every job site that knows more than somebody else.
Yeah.
The ability to have that conversation in the first place. I always say, like, find somebody that you respect that has gray hair and then just listen. Like, that's a big deal. And imparting that to young carpenters is a difficult thing sometimes. There are a lot of big personalities in our industry, you know, and just patience to say, we want to be better. Let's focus every day on being better is an incredible thing.
I think training an employee too, like the way that I think about it is not necessarily like putting them in front of, you know, manufacturers reps or the conferences and trade shows. That's all important. But I want to try and encourage them to think freely and independently. So the way that I don't really have like a formal training program in-house, but if a guy is kind of new, I want him to like shepherd me and kind of learn all of our systems and processes. But I encourage them along the way to be vocal. It's like, hey, this is how I think about this business, and this is why I do it this way, but I have blind spots as well. Like, take your own experience and layer that in on top. How do you think you could do this differently or better? Like, in a way, like, improve this process with us. Like, let's all train each other.
Yeah, one of the things I've tried to do, obviously need to get better, can get better, but is when I had hired my new employee, and we go to job sites, I'm like, here's what I'm looking at. Like, here's what I see, here's what I'm looking at. And this is, you know, and it was kind of eye-opening for him. And also, you know, say simple things like, hey, you know, what's going on here with that or this, and trying to almost test them, you know, in a way. And if they don't see it, whatever, point it out. And then they're like, wow, I didn't even see that. And just getting them used to looking for certain things, whether it's a water spot in the ceiling or, you know, something, you know. So simple things.
My three favorites in that spectrum. Number one, in rough framing. Okay, where's that load supported?
Yeah.
And if they can trace the load all the way down, they can figure out if there's a problem. Where's the water supply coming to for that, or where's the drain for that? We're in the bathroom. There's a shower, there's a toilet, there's a sink. Are there drains for all three of them? Are there water for all three of them? And where is that light switched? Where should that light be switched?
Yeah.
That simple conversation with a new project manager, you immediately on the next job, you'll have a guy going, hey, they didn't put switches. On the plans, everything's a three-way in these three rooms, and they just switched them by one door. That hasn't changed, right? Like, the second you have a project manager that's walking into a room and actually going, okay, where's the light switch? Where does it make sense for it to go? Which way did the door swing? All those things are interconnected, and they all lead back to, I'm in command of the environment, the built environment that we're working in.
You know, I know we've all had our fair share of employees, you know, over the years. What are some things that you've done that, to maybe in hopes of training, that didn't work? You know, like, what are some, you know, ways that you thought maybe was going to train an employee, or you expected them to learn that didn't work? That maybe someone listening here might say, oh, let's just avoid that. I know for me, I'll share this. I just assumed that having like an assistant project manager be around a project manager, they would just absorb. And what I quickly realized is that project manager is tasking that assistant project manager or an expediter, whatever the role is called, you know, whether they're doing, whether it's more cleaning or some hands-on things. The project manager's job is to actually manage the job and get it done. So we found that our other employees were getting tasked with something to do that they were qualified for, and that's what they were doing all day. They weren't actually being around the project manager. They'd come back to the project manager saying, hey, this is done. What can I do now? And he's like, you know what? I got to go meet with the framer. We got to go lay this out. So you just go clean that room over there, and then I'll be back. And at the end of the day, all of a sudden, and we realized we weren't training our staff. Like, the hopes I thought was like, oh, they just need to be around this incredible project manager and he'll absorb and see what he does. And the reality is, like, on the job site, they're split. So we kind of had to rethink, how do we train on site? Like, what are some ways that what didn't work, maybe?
I would say the simplest is, if the employee isn't invested in the success of the company, they're not ever going to be invested in being better at their job. If they're somebody that's just there to punch the clock and go home, I've never been able to turn anybody from that to a motivated, inspired employee. If you can find people that are motivated and inspired, you can train for anything. They'll be willing to grow in any number of ways. But I've never had anybody flip the switch on that.
There's a really good book I once read called From Good to Great by this guy. I think it was Jim Collins. He's a Stanford professor, and he did this study on 10 Fortune 500 companies that he deemed made the transition from a good company to a great company. And he basically did it by analyzing all of this stock data, since it was publicly available, to measure how their performance exceeded that of their competitors for a sustained period of time. And then he compared all of the results he compared those 10 companies from a wide range of industries to see what similarities they had amongst each of them. And one of the things that stood out to me was he said, in each of those 10 companies that he said made this jump from good to great, they took their best performers and put them on the biggest opportunities, not the biggest problems. Like, it's really easy to take a guy who you think is a stud that can handle a problem really well, to say, that's an easy solution to put my talented guy on solving this problem. But what they found was that ultimately you're not really making an investment in that person if all you're giving him is the SHIT sandwich to eat every single time. So inevitably, and I need to get better at this myself. It's something that I'm always thinking about in terms of making an investment in your guys and training them is, like you said, Jackson, try not to just put your junior guys on the problems. Go clean that room. Go, sweep the street or whatever. Invest in trying to place them on opportunities and giving them a chance to fail,
Also giving them the freedom to make decisions, develop, systems or whatever it may be, or obviously generating ideas and whatnot.
Suggestions.
Freedom
to suggest.
Give them more, make sure they know they have that freedom, to speak up or to present ideas or whatever it may be. I think that's huge, empowering them.
That's great. I think it really comes back to interacting with our team and making sure that we're encouraging them to participate in it, and have employees that are wanting to be part of the solution and kind of have a self-drive to engage with this. I think that's where a lot of that worth comes from them, especially as we are looking for employees to bring onto our team as well.
Hi, I'm Shane Durkin with Patriot High Performance Homes. Thank you to my co-hosts for welcoming me here to this Builder Business Roundtable, and for Huber Engineered Woods for sponsoring this discussion. When I look back on my experience of becoming a builder, there's one product that I think really is like a microcosm of the transformation I went through as a builder, and that was Zip System. I talked about it earlier about the opportunity to take this leap of faith into high performance construction, and really the first part of that was getting to build a house with Zip System in my market. It was hugely transformational for me as a builder, to put on display that I think there's a better way to build. I don't think there's a better company out there that embodies the same type of core values I'm trying to embody in my own building philosophy. And quite honestly, I don't think there are other products like it that deliver as much value to the end consumer. So great company, great products. Thank you for sponsoring this event.